Hey guys, I've got some major spit tea to spill for you guys from Baby Mama's No Drama. Kail revealed that her son, well, she asked her inaugural baby daddy, Joe Rivera, on behalf of their son Isaac, to change Isaac's last name. Now, if you've been following Kail Lowry since the inception of 16 and Pregnant Teen Mom 2 and everything like that, then you know that one thing about this girl is that she loves to play around with her children's last names and that her children have a variety of different last names. So she's got about 7 children in total, and between them, I believe there are at least 4 different last names. Let's actually go ahead and round them up and count it. So here's the most recent picture of all her and all her kids, right? So she has got right there, you see on the far left, Isaac. His last name is Rivera. She's also got Lincoln that you see at the bottom of this. His last name is Marroquin. Then she's got Lux, and then she's got Creed. Lex's last name is, oh my God, this feels like a pop quiz that I'm about to lose. I don't know how she keeps track of it, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lux's last name is Lowry. Then I believe that Creed, despite being at that point her only children who shared a biological father, he's got a different last name. I believe his last name is Larry Lopez. So 4 children here, 4 completely different last names. So again, from left to right, Rivera, Marroquin. Then this time it's going to be in reverse because Creed is sitting where Lux should be. But Creed's last name, I believe, is Larry Lopez, and then Lux's is just Lowry. So the reason being, when she had Lux and Creed with Chris, she went and she gave Lux. God, I listen. I'm very tired. If I was talking about this to my channel members, you guys, but basically, and that's why I'm not really appearing too much in this video. I'm staying with my sister, right? And then my sister, she's got 2 puppies, and one of the puppies, a little miniature poodle, had diarrhea. And the way that stressed me out yesterday, she didn't only have that, she was vomiting all day yesterday too. It was a nightmare. And then today we did some fasting, 24-hour fasting. And so, like, she seemed to have been okay. My sister, she was not home yesterday or today until late after work. So I was looking after this and I am worn out, right? So I can't even think about it. But basically, she was doing a negotiation tactic with Chris after Chris signed over custody of Lux, or wanted to. He begged a judge allegedly to sign over custody for Lux while she was expecting Creed, and then she thought if she gave Lux or Creed or something the last name, Creed when he was born, his last name was initially Lopez, and then she went to go change it to Lowry, and then the judge said no because she had, in a different court, she did the same thing to Lux. I can't remember. So anyway, 4 kids, 4 completely different last names, 4 different ethnicities, or 3 different ethnicities, I should say, right? Because she's got a Puerto Rican baby daddy, she's got a Guatemalan baby daddy, then she's got a part Mexican, white, and black baby daddy, right? And then she meets Elijah, and then with Elijah, they go ahead and they have 3 new children. So Elijah, I believe, is black. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he's like black Hispanic or like Afro Latino or anything like that. I believe he's black. And he's got a different last name, right? His last name is Scott. And so with Elijah, she's got 3 kids, but she's learned her lesson about, giving her kids the baby daddy last names. She says she doesn't regret giving Lincoln Javi's last name because they were married. But with the other one, she's not doing that no more. So she gets this young thing, and then she has 3 kids by him, and all of their last names are Lowry. So now cut to the Isaac situation after that long little rabbit hole into all of these assorted children, baby daddies, and last names, right? So she did allude to this in the past, but like she didn't say that she formally asked. So this is the new news. So she told us on this week's episode of Baby Mamas that she asked Joe to change Isaac's last name and he flat out refused. He said no. And she asked, okay, well, if we're not going to change it, and we're going to talk about what she wants to change it to, or he wants to change it to, can we hyphenate it? And he was like, no. So apparently, according to Kail, Isaac wants his last name to be, Lowry, or or to be hyphenated Rivera Lowry. And so why is Kail talking about this? Why is she surfacing this? Well, great question. Well, on Baby Mamas, someone wrote in about how like they had a child from a prior relationship, then they got with someone new, they got married, and the kid has their new family last name, right? The mom, dad, and the new kid all have the same last name, and this kid does not. And so Kail was trying to relate to that, except again, when you look at Kail's children and the fact that they've got like four different, uh, five different, oh my God, hang on. Rivera, Marroquin, Lowry, Larry Lopez, and now, okay, it's four. I was scared it was about to be five. No, four different last names. Isaac changing his last name to Lowry, would still give him a different last name from three other kids. So I do think that is a completely different scenario. And then if he changed it to Rivera Lowry, yeah, I guess he would feel more in line with Joe and Joe's family, which includes V and Vivi. Given that their last names are Rivera, well, actually, V's last name is technically not Rivera, which we will get into later, but would still be different, right? Because it's part Rivera, but also part Lowry. So I don't know that it technically fits in with it, but it was a very interesting conversation nonetheless. Now let's get into Irwin. So another thing that Isaac wanted was potentially for his last name to be Irwin, which is Kail's mom's maiden name. And so she says that she doesn't want the last name Lowry because it is her dad's. Her dad didn't really raise her. But here's the thing: your mom technically didn't raise her. Her bottle raised you, and then her side of the family helped raise you. So maybe, I get where you're coming from in that respect. But the mom, she was not really all that, great or present, which explains why Kail has not been in contact with her for the past, 7 years, and how only like one and a half children, and I say half because Lincoln is too young to have any memories of her, know her. You're 7 kids deep, and you're here talking about you want your mom's, seven kids deep. Six don't, have any memories with her. Five have never actually had any kind of contact with her. And you're talking about having her maiden name. I find that to be very interesting, right? Um, and so, yeah, the whole thing is just very, very, very fascinating. So I guess she was talking about this to Isaac, and that's why Isaac wants Irwin as a last name or something like that. But it just feels super convoluted and messy to, like, have as a kind of topic with this child, because again, there's already a million last names to keep track of in this household. Kail's mom was never really like, much of a mother to her. And so it just, to me, doesn't really make sense that this child who was raised, super well by his father, who's always been involved, and between the two parents is the stable force in his life, for him to change his last name to Irwin to have nothing to do with his father. I find that really odd. And you guys know me, I am, against, and listen, you could do whatever you want to do with your kids, but as a general thing, I don't understand why women give their kids that they carry, they breastfeed, and that they are majority responsible for the last names of baby daddies. If it's your husband, go ahead, and that's your last name too, go ahead. But a baby daddy, I don't get it. So this is not me like, being against that in any stretch of, the imagination. It's kind of like, well, if you were going to do this, you should have done this from jump, rather than to come spring this on, Joe, when Isaac is 15 years old now or something like that. Very strange. I see why he categorically refused that mess. Honestly, Kail she's just like, she just is always bringing like some kind of drama and mess. Like, don't you have like three, new kids to be worried about? Like, what are you worried about changing Isaac's last name for at this point in his life? Like, go, worry about that new tornado you've got. You've got three new kids. You've got like some, new baby daddy. You've got like 20 goats, chickens, cats, kittens, and whatnot. Like, it's always a tornado with this girl. Honestly, I kind of low key feel like Joe rues the day that he met her, because the amount of mess that she has brought into his life and into his child's life is just indescribable, right? And so Kail also said that she herself would be going by her last name Irwin, well, her mom's maiden last name Irwin, instead of Lowry, if she did not become famous. She's like, I've built a brand as Kail Lowry at this point, so I just, I can't change it, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing: if it really was that much of a sentimental thing to you, I think you can go ahead and change it legally and still go by Kail Lowry kind of publicly, right? If that's what you want to do. But, again, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of paperwork and everything like that. So I think she doesn't want to bother it. Now, so speaking of a lot of paperwork, right? Let's talk about V. Remember how I claimed that Isaac's, well, Joe's side of the family, meaning V, Vivi, and Joe, all their last names was Rivera? That was a lie, because guess what? V revealed on this podcast that she actually has not officially changed her last name to Rivera. It is Rivera on social media and everything like that, but it just is way too much time and effort to go ahead and get it all changed right now. She and Joe got married shortly before the pandemic. Then the pandemic came around, which made it really difficult to get any kind of administrative work done. Remember, we couldn't really go in person to do things, and there was a huge backlog of things and documents and whatnot. So it just never really panned out for her to get it changed. But it is something that she definitely wants to change because her daughter's last name is Rivera, and her husband's last name is Rivera, and she's publicly going by Rivera, even though she is not legally a Rivera. So that is something very interesting that she went over, and she was talking about how, due to her biological father being a deadbeat, a dusty like Kail's mom, she always wanted to separate herself from that last name. So she was super excited when she got married that the opportunity had presented itself. But again, she and Joe got married shortly before the pandemic, and the pandemic made it really difficult to get administrative tasks done or anything like that. So she just never really got around to changing it, although that is something that she is certainly on the lookout for. So voila. Anyway, you guys, very, very interesting stuff going down on this week's episode of Baby Mama's No Drama. It's been a while since I've really been able to recap Baby Mama's Coffee Convos Are Barely Famous because she and her co-host, co-workers, whatever, have not really been discussing anything all that interesting. Whenever I hear a little tidbit, I do typically share it with my channel members. Like, for example, last week, uh, I shared about how on Coffee Combos, Kail and Lindsay, two girls who were talking about wanting to go to law school and whatnot, they were completely unaware that there was a pay gap amongst men and women. They were just learning that, and then it was also mind blowing to them to learn that like amongst ethnicities as well. So women are paid less than men, but women of color are paid even less than other women or something like that. Like this was all news to them. And I was like, are you two not like educated women? All right, then. So we did talk about that with the channel members. But, other than that, there's really not that much going on with these podcasts. I will say, though, that you can tell that the chemistry between Kail and Lindsay is a million times better than the chemistry between Kail and V. You could just tell that like Kail and Lindsay are actually like good friends who talk and this, that, and the other. But in Kail and V's defense, this week's episode of Baby Mama's No Drama, it sounded like they actually did get along well. They used to really get along well, and you can tell they would talk a lot. Then they would do like a couple of questions or user generated feedback like later on in the podcast, and then it completely transformed. And I think it was when Kail's text messages leaked, when she was calling Jo Rivera ugly and saying, "Oh, I don't know how V like can sleep with him," that type of thing. That completely changed their relationship and dynamic permanently, in my opinion. But it seems like they're on the track to kind of tolerating each other again at this point, because this week's episode, they really did speak a lot before getting into the user generated content. Because for the past 2, 3, maybe 4 months, all they did was just, hey, how was your week? Great, how was your week? And then they would just jump into user feedback. And you're like, dude, like, where's the actual conversation? Like, a podcast is supposed to have a convo, no? So it's nice to see them get back into that. Anyway, guys, listen, I need to take a little bit of a nap because when I wake up, my sister, nephew, and I are going to go play some tennis. Anyway, so yeah, there's your recap. Let me know what you thought about all this in the comment section. I am so tired. Sorry, you guys. And I'll see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.